costs for the residents of the Village of Maywood. Question 2 is the Maywood Park District has an annual tax levy of more than $700,000. Shall the annual tax levy funds of the Maywood Park District be allocated to create a Village of Maywood residential property tax rebate program if the Maywood Park District is dissolved into the Village of Maywood? And then 3 is, shall the Illinois Government General Assembly increase the amount of homeowner property tax exemption to help reduce the property tax burden of residents of the Village of Maywood? So just a backstory of how we even got to this conversation. If you go back to or think back to 2020, 2021, the conversation was, if we're going to have a governing district of a park district, then they should manage and they should run everything. So we did a management agreement with everything that the village owns. On the right-hand side, you'll see everything that we already own. And on the left-hand side, you'll see what the park district owns. So the conversation was more so of a, what would it look like and how would the park district actually manage everything? Fast forward to 2023, nothing had really been done to make anything better. So we tried for 3 years. We did a intergovernmental agreement, which, just for the record, is expired. The intergovernmental agreement had to be done to transfer the parks and everything to the village, to the Maywood Park District, within 2 years. We're in year 4 at this point. So that was not done. So it is an expired IGA agreement. The only thing in the agreement that says if there is a mutual agreed upon extension, that would happen. There has not been a mutually agreed upon extension since we signed it in June of 2021. So the agreement of the transfer of the parks is an expired agreement. Within that time, yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Eaton, Partners Commissioner, why exactly was the transfer not completed?
So we came up into different issues throughout the transfer. As a one part, the park district was supposed to do the assessment of what it would be to renovate and restore all parks. What the village agreed to was up to $100,000 match of things done year 1 and year 2, but the park district never showed even $5 to have that 50 match. So we were up to $100,000. The park district didn't purchase anything. There were plans there was a spreadsheet that was provided, but nothing past the spreadsheet being provided was ever done. When you go to, we have the management agreement of the 200 building. Within the management agreement of the 200 building, the Maywood Park District was supposed to pay the actual maintenance and bills of that. That never happened. When you go to the pool, they were supposed to manage in 2021 pool operations, in 2022 pool operations, and 2023 pool operations at the Proviso East swimming pool. It happened not in the best way 1 year. So when you think about when we canceled that agreement and we canceled those management things last year, we were able to work and run the pool operations. We have full operations for the students for free at the Maywood, at the 200 building right across the street every day that takes place. So it just became a point of, if you're not managing it and if you're not paying bills, but you're taking in all this revenue, what is the benefit of the partnership? And it just became a point in time that it wasn't a benefit to be a partner. When you look at all of the different events that the Village of Maywood did with the Village of Maywood and the Maywood Park District logo on the flyer, the Park District never put any money into those events. We literally were trying to help become a partner to do park and recreation with the Park District, but realistically, it was just us paying the bill. So the transfer didn't go through because emails and conversations began to happen of, we had, I want to say it was 2022 at Burton Park, there was a presentation of a brand new facility being built and a brand new park being built. That never happened. There wasn't even money to buy the park equipment. There was no money to build the building. There was no grant that even got applied for to build the building. So it was like, what's going on? For the parks that the Village of Maywood still owned that were being managed by the Maywood Park District, there was paperwork filed. as a end of season 50/50 program from it was a park district company that builds park equipment, and the village purchased the park equipment, but the park district couldn't even afford to rip out the old park equipment. So it was like, where's the partnership? So I think the issue became over time, one, there was no strategic plan for the Maywood Park District. There was no budget for the Maywood Park District. The Maywood Park District had not filed paperwork of their audits in 5 years at the time. So it became is this even a viable thing to do? And it wasn't about a fight or anything like that because there's no beef to be had. It was just more so make it make sense. So I'm thinking about the thought process and to make it make sense. This is like the park that we have at Baton Park. Baton Park, under the previous management of the Maywood Park District, we had already agreed to purchase, we had already agreed to transfer, we had already agreed that the park could be installed and be new. Nothing happened for 3 years. So that's what it looked like before the end and after the end for 3 years. This summer, it's a brand new park. So it made sense of like, why does this doesn't take 3 years to fix? If we're already saying we will financially assist and financially partner, why we can get this done, but the park district couldn't. The other piece, when you look at Veterans Park, all of the rentals for sports or anything like that, events, that all went to the park district. So within those revenues, the maintenance should have taken place. It didn't. But now the village manages it and it's taken care of. When you think about broken fences, missing fences, poor conditions, missing park equipment, it's nothing to attack anybody on, but there was opportunity to have this done under the management of the park district. It just wasn't done. So the conversation becomes more so of why did it, why did nothing happen? Why was nothing renovated? If we're agreeing to pay for it, why aren't you doing your part, which is literally just the planning of it? Um, we've installed the new parks, we've replaced poor conditions, we have new basketball courts, we have new park equipment. Um, but for whatever reason, it was just something that the park district just didn't get done. New parks, new ribbon cuttings. Again, this is stuff that was a partnership to get paid for and get done. It just wasn't done. So realistically, the referendum question, honestly, is just about the 4 parks that the park district still owned, because the village already owns 7 parks. And the agreement of the 7 transfers it's an expired agreement at this point.
Question.
Trustee Brandon.
So my question is going back to what was stated, and I don't know if that was another agreement put in place or another contract, but when you talked about that there was supposed to be matching funds from the park district, there was no, unless something new happened, but there was no, because I attended every meeting, that in this particular meeting was orchestrated by Senator Kimberly Lightfoot over at the park district as it related to the village providing support up to $100,000 per phase of phase 1 and 2 to help bring the parks up to code, because we was under the impression that it would be difficult for the park district to receive insurance on a lot of the parks based on the conditions that the parks were in, while the parks were under the ownership of the village of Maywood. So each agreement and each phase, the village committed to, without any matching funds, that we would give up to $100,000 in phase 1 and 2. And so based on the direction from you, actually, we went forth and supported the park district financially to help purchase equipment for the park district. The equipment was never owned by the village because it was owned by the park district based on an agreement that we had set forth with the park district. And so I'm hearing this evening that there was a matching situation that I was not aware of. And I don't know where that information exists as it relates to us matching the park district. That wasn't any paperwork that I have. The only agreement that we had on the table through the conversation that was orchestrated or facilitated, I should say, by Senator Lightford, was that we would provide financial support up to $100,000 in each phase of the transfer of those parks in phase one and phase two. So you mentioned matching funds. What matching funds were requested or just in writing that we had the park district to commit to as it relates to those two phases?
I'm pulling it right now for trustee. Give me 2 seconds because I want to make sure I read it verbatim. So the village shall provide financial support and resources to the park district to fund repairs and alterations required as set forth in the facility assessment support report below and attached hereunto during the 2-year period of 2022 and 2023. The village obligation shall be limited to lesser of $100,000 or 50% of the total cost reflected in the assessment. During the 2-year period, the village's financial obligation shall be limited to lesser of $100,000 or 50% of total costs reflected, which would mean the other 50% would need to come from the park district. So that is the actual agreement that we signed off on, that we voted on. But either way, let me just be real clear on this. To me, that's semantics at this point because one, they didn't put any financially into it. But the other part is, where would the other 50% have come from if it wasn't from the park district?
So the assessment, and you were in conjunction with Lynette Hall at the time, and so I don't know what's that connection or.
I want to be real clear. The connection was she was the she was the executive director of the park district. So we're not going to play this narrative.
Correct.
We're not going to play this game. Trustee, this is more of a community meeting. So if the community has a question, we can have a question. I know you run against me for mayor, but what we're not going to do is turn this into a political back and forth. Ask me a specific question.
That it was up to, so
She did.
you was speaking as well.
Certainly.
Even when the came, there were costs that exceeded over 300, over 500,000 in repairs at not just you know one particular park. That was in need of hundreds of thousands of dollars in repairs. And so our agreement with the park district is that the village will supply $100,000, right? In both of those phases, which it equals $200,000. And so we did our part by agreeing to those terms and following what you had described at the time, that they were the best professionals to lead the way, that they had everything organized, and from what it turns out that we were all misled and misinformed based on information that was provided, quite frankly, by you and Ms. Hall.
First off,
And now we find ourselves in a situation where we're saying, "No, we want to take it moving." It just makes no sense to me whatsoever to move in.
Well, let me help you. Let me help it make sense for you.
Go ahead.
One, I just read the contract that you actually voted for.
Yeah.
Which talked about up to $100,000, right?
Yes.
The other reality is, if you go 3 years and something hasn't gotten better, it should be your job to fix it and change it. So to say it's 3 years, what we voted for and what we tried to go with didn't work. Was it working? Is it working? Let's change that. Is an easy acknowledgement of saying it wasn't working. Because what we've been able to do in 1 year, they could not do in 3 years. So when we sit there and say, we'll take the management of it back and we'll handle it. In one summer, we have 4 brand new parks. We have a dog park. We have a successful program that ran at the pool. We had summer activities going on for the youth at the 200 building for free the entire summer, 5 days a week. At a point in time, you have to say, make it make sense. Those 3 years of lack of productivity weren't making sense. So you have to acknowledge that something has to change. Yes, ma'am.
Question. Who was managing these contracts within the 3 years?
The management agreement was the park. So the park district managed the facilities and grants.
Managed the contract.
I mean, like, so from the village standpoint, all we did was sign an intergovernmental agreement of saying that we're get.
That after that, you just signed the agreement?
No, there were conversations, there were meetings that took place.
Who is,
Oh, the village manager is the person who manages the contracts.
and
So
is he here to give us
that village manager isn't here anymore.
what was happening?
He retired.
Because it seems like this is a lot of time and it's a lot of information
Mhm.
that should be addressed.
There were emails. Well, that's not true.
Or the park
I must
take it all,
no, ma'am. That's not
another government entity,
that's not
a babysitter.
so that's
With a board just like ours.
Mhm.
And the reason why they got these parks to begin with, do we know, have that been cured with the village? Because what I'm seeing is that the village is understaffed, everybody talking about we don't have enough public works, they can't do their job, Cole can't do their job. And you're talking about giving us $700,000 worth of rebate? Is that taking that money and giving it to the residents or giving it to the village of Maywood?
So I guess to answer your question a few different ways is one, there were several conversations over the last 3 years.
Can you have writing?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's fine.
You know,
Yeah, there are reports, there are emails, there are conversations, there are legal conversations, there are legal emails that took place over the 3 year period of what wasn't being done, of what maintenance wasn't being done, of what revenues weren't being paid, over the conditions, over the once the assessment was done. What are we doing now? There were several meetings, conversations, and legal documented things that took place over that 3 year period, which is why when we voted last year to not renew the management agreement, it was because there was plenty of stuff documented of understanding this is what was supposed to happen versus this is what is happening. The other part to answer your question, the 700,000 is the levy that is their taxing body. Realistically, when you think about it from the village of Maywood, we already own 7 out of the 11 parks. So it's not that we're trying to take the actual park and recreation area from them. The village already owns. We're dissolved, but that well, okay. So here's the reality. When you think about it from this standpoint, this has been a conversation for over 20 years, right? There was a no, follow me. There was a refer. My point is there was a referendum done back in 2006, right? The referendum back in 2006 said, "Oh, everything should be transferred over to the park district." For nearly 20.
were you here?
Well, I was in college, but the reality was because it's a park and recreation governing body. So if you're going to pay, my point is if you're going to pay a taxing body, and if your property taxes are paying into this taxing body, then they should be the ones to run it, right? So that vote took place in 2006. That vote had 2 years to go into effect. It never went into effect. So that made that a defunct thought process and conversation. But even when you look at where we are in 2024, just to go real quick, I'm going to go through all this. So what was reported and documented last year, since that part, we've had 3 resignations of board members out of 5 from a park district. You had a director who reported less than $310 in the bank account of a governing body. You had last year 2 instances where they actually bounced payroll because payroll had not been paid. You now have nearly $100,000 and unpaid health insurance for employees. You have 5 former employees who reported missing work hours and reported to the state and the labor department. You have a park district that took out a $200,000 line of credit without an even board vote done last year. And on top of the $200,000 that was taken out without a board vote, magically $25,000 of it came up hacked and missing. And now they're asking for another line of credit. You have a district that has not given you a budget for this fiscal year whatsoever. You have a park district that has not given you 5 years of an audit. You have, again, well, we did have an agreement to say you all will manage these things, wasn't done. There's multiple different reasons why this is a conversation. I mean, like, so when you think about it this way, if you go over to the Maywood Park District right now, the roof is still leaking. The roof was supposed to be fixed 5 years ago. There was a grant actually given to fix the roof. It's still not fixed. You still have the bricks pulling away from the building now. You have it where even the new executive director has moved himself out of where the old executive director's office was because of mold in the building. You have it where when you have rain, the activities in the gym have to be moved because it's raining in the building. You have an air conditioning unit that's broke to the point that you have home air conditioning units in a window in a commercial facility. You have it where Proven IT that handles the camera systems and even the ability to print in the facility has shut them down because they haven't paid that bill. You have it where LRS, which is the garbage company, they had an account under the Village of Maywood where they owe $21,000. You have it where ComEd, you owe them over $20,000.
I know.
So for me, well, this has been a long time, but I would say for me, I brought it up last year to start the conversation because for that 2-year period, a lot of stuff came out. So when trying to bring it now to the community, I'm like, I mean, guys, I'm not trying to dog nobody because I'm not mad at anybody. It's nothing personal, but make it make sense. You can't print. Your camera systems are shut down. You owe the trash company. You owe the camera company. If this was how the Village of Maywood was operated, you all would be calling for my resignation. So that's my biggest piece. But let me get to
Rain perfect.
no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
See, well documented. Somebody needs to look at the difference, try to document everything that's not right with the village.
Then do that.
They should do that.
I don't disagree.
But as far as I understand exactly what this young lady is saying, this is another governing body. Let them do their thing. If anything, the village.
Here's the part.
To help.
We tried. We tried. Like, yes, ma'am. Let's get to this question.
Hey, years no address the issue until now.
Well, we had the conversations to get up to this point.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
And so saying that they're not doing everything that's leaking. They are in the park district now working.
Mm-hmm.
It took all these years with the electric component that runs like the 220 thing is so old that all of a sudden code enforcement goes in there and they say it's a violation.
But it wasn't all of a sudden.
Extended what happened when they went in there, that's after when the park district would not let you have that Caribbean festival park district.
That's not true. So let me be real clear. The Caribbean Fest had already been moved. But when you think about it that way, one, the electrical issues, the roof issues, the brick issues, the tuck pointing issues, the flooring issues are well documented. The mold issues are well documented. So it's not that this came from nowhere.
So, Mr. Mayor.
There was and
It's been like for a long time.
I don't well because it's like at one point in time well It's not everything gets fixed right away. The only thing that they've done so far is the electrical work. So it's not that I, and I, good. But I'm saying is, at what point in time do you stop having conversations and ignoring the issues and say this? At what Had the inspection not gotten done? How Cook County not have come? At what point in time were they actually going to get it done? How many times can you have a conversation with somebody? How many times can you send somebody an email? How many times can you say this is an issue and nothing gets done? They've not, they have been, but we've had several meetings with them about it. They actually have inspections that have been done before. This was just the only reason it became an issue was because all of a sudden they actually got some sort of reaction aside from an email or a conversation. It has been ongoing conversations of the conditions of that building. It doesn't make sense to have operations in a facility that has mold in it. It
And and that 700,000 is gonna go someplace other than the village's budget.
the conversation that's a question, right? Because it's literally
Question,
yes.
taking it.
No. So this is literally just a question of here's the reality and here's the truth. The village of Maywood still owns 7 out of 4 parks, right? The village of Maywood still owns 2 out of 4 community resource facilities. So with us already having the majority of park and recreation, does it make sense to keep a separate governing body that financially is not sound, that has no strategic plan, that has not submitted their actual audits to the state, that has absolutely no budget filed for this fiscal year? It's just a question, right? So if the question is, you know what? We know it's been an issue for decades, we're gonna leave it how it is, then that's what will be.
No, that,
But
basically, you're saying the same thing. If we know what's going on, I mean, even if I have a problem with my key,
mhm.
and I done told him 1,000 times to do something, and he still don't do it, I don't give up. Still try to work with him. And that's what I think the village and the park district should do, regardless of what's going on. Work together. Come on, let's make this thing work. We got a
So how do you okay, so let me Laura, I'm gonna get to you.
district,
Let me
and we had a referendum.
this
To give them
20 years ago. But here's the reality with that. One, even if we transfer all 7 parks and 2 facilities over, there's no money that comes with that. So if they can't even run what they run in now, if they bouncing checks now, if they have no health insurance being paid now, how much worse do you think it's going to get?
See, I don't know exactly all of this stuff that you're
But you do though, because your cousin is the president.
I mean,
Your cousin is the whole president of the board. Yes, you do. Then you should have read it because you already know, you know I was gonna say it. Don is the president. Don is your cousin. So at the end of the day, you got to be real. If they aren't able to make pay, if they aren't able to pay back $100,000 in health insurance back paid, if they're not able to pay ComEd, LRS, if they've lost what three different attorneys in the past year, at a certain point. So my proposal would be to honestly just have the question answered. For me, the question realistically is there are other communities where the village runs park and recreation as a district. As a taxpayer, take away me being mayor. It does not make sense to pay taxes into a park and recreation district where the village of Maywood already has a finance department. We already have an HR department. We already have public works. We already have building and code. So if it takes away from duplicative services of saying the park district needs a finance director, yet they can't file an audit. The park district needs an executive director of $110,000 a year to manage 4 parks and 1 building, 2 buildings, versus actually bringing it all into one fold. I think when you think about back into the 1980s, when there were 4 different governing bodies running park and recreation in the village of Maywood. Here we are now, fast forward to 2024. There is an issue. There is a problem, and it needs to be addressed. But I don't see the workaround acknowledging a park district that has 3 years of bank statements without $5 of cash deposited into a bank account. Where's the cash? You have people who pay for cash for repasses, for registration, for programs. 3 years of 9 bank accounts with no cash deposits? I get you, but at a certain point, you have to say this doesn't make sense.
It is. Since the village feel like we should take it over, there was not a legislative or government body that looks at this and would have took it over before all this happened.
There have been conversations with the Illinois Association of Park and Recreation. I'm saying, but there have been conversations with the Illinois Association of Park and Recreation.
Or
Both, all together, all together. The Illinois Association of Park Districts. There have been conversations.
what's that?
We really don't get involved with those things. They are, but that was their I mean, but that was their we really don't get involved. Could there be 2 park and recreation departments? Yes. We hear everything you're saying, but it's not our job to facilitate them. There's been conversations with the comptroller's office of the state because there's no, the state and the park district. That wasn't my conversation. That was the state and the park district have had those conversations because you're supposed to file an annual audit. I mean, so it's at a certain point, it becomes the conversation of if you want to look away to the left and you want to sit there and act like in 3 years, not a single child is paid for basketball registration with cash. Not one repass has been done and paid for in cash. Not one wedding or one reception has been paid for in cash in 3 years. Where's the money? Like that, and I think that's the biggest conversation that has come out of the last 3 years. Right? It's not like this has been a part of something coming in for the last 20 years that have been a conversation that I've been having. It's what? Wait a minute. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1.
Given the complete investment. The separation of the jurisdictions between Village of Maywood and the Park District, it seems to me that if the Park District is not being governed well, the way that it's handled is through the election cycle. Well,
And I agree, but that's I don't know why we're clapping. That's the referendum question. That's the very the government way is it's on the ballot as a question.
You got here too.
it seems it should be done through the Park District. So if they're not doing a good job, get them voted out, vote in the veto. In the new, let's say new people come aboard and they still mess up. Ultimately, I think the referendum, that type of thing needs to be driven by the community, and so I just am confused. I understand the village has parks already and should run with those. What I don't understand is let the park district run with what they've got. If they're running it into the ground, clearly, apparently. So then the next step is for the community to take it a step further and work with, I don't know, work with the state or something to dissolve it. But
But you can't. Well, the question from the village standpoint in November is to simply answer the question. If everybody still wants to look to the left and not pay attention,
Right.
then that is a choice. But from a village standpoint, I think it's irresponsible of me to be the mayor and know everything that I know about what's going on and what's taking place and not present the question. Because if this came out of saying the mayor knew all this all the time and didn't say a thing, then I would be a bad person, right? So for me, I'm going to make everyone aware. You all make the choice because it is on an election to vote on it, right? It's a part of an electoral process. If less than 50% of the people say leave the park district alone, then guess what? That's what will happen.
Less than 50. Gauge that. Is that determined by the number of people that vote?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but that's the honest. I mean, but that's just being honest. At the end of the day, if you had a mayor who do everything that I've just shared and didn't say a thing, then I would be a bad person.
But this ain't
I get, but what I'm
clear.
no, but what I'm saying, what I'm saying is the transparent. I'm saying the transparency. I'm saying the transparency of it. I'm just saying the transparency of it. If you had the chief executive officer not being transparent, that would be a problem.
The federal government that ran Maywood Housing. Maywood didn't go over there and try to shut them down. The federal government did. So you're telling me there is not a federal agency
No,
regulating?
no, no,
So state.
no. The answer is
No,
no.
there's no state government that regulates parks.
The park district, the park district has gotten filed to the Department of Labor. They've gotten filed with the Secretary of State's office. They've gotten filed with the Attorney General's office. They've gotten filed with the Cook County State's Attorney's office. No.
Negative report from each one.
Yes. So there are recommendations, right? But there's nothing legally that they have to do. If the question of consolidation is the question, that's something that the residents have to vote on. The federal government, the state government, nor the county government can effectively dissolve a governing body. The only way that would have been able to happen, there was one piece where it could say, like, if the board has been so negligent. But one of the pieces of the 5 pieces that have to qualify of the negligence is that they don't meet. They have meetings. That is the only way a judge would have been able to say, this is a problem. But is there anything from a federal, state, or county that will come in and shut them down?
Or just not see it.
Well, manage them, oversee them, so say like if a school district had needs oversight. No,
Can they be a park district or
that could be an option.
them get on their feet?
That would either have to be an intergovernmental agreement that the no, no, you don't.
And that's still
That's expired.
Oh, I mean, but it expired because the village didn't turn over the sick park.
It's expired because bills weren't paid. It's expired because it didn't make sense. It's expired because the conversation versus what became the reality was not real. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mr. Mayor, this just sounds like to me like a long game. You know, like everybody in here know what a long
Here's
game
the reality. It's not a game, though.
Because it seems like this has been probably on the agenda for a long time, or this has been something that you've been thinking about for a long time. And then that's where you were able to amass all this information and take all these old historical pictures and show up.
They're not historical. You can know that today.
That's all this.
So here's the reality. Who do you think brought Senator Lightfoot to the meeting that Trustee Brandon is speaking of? I did. Who do you think pushed forward to say, if we're going to do park and recreation, let's do it? And let's let that governing body. I did. So you can't say it's a personal agenda of consolidation 3 years later. It was this last 3 years has not worked. And it's very clear why it's not working. It hasn't been a bad conversation or bad reality of if it was an agenda, I would have never pushed for the IGA to begin with.
Could have been the directorship that it was under. Now that they don't have that director anymore, could things have been getting better? And this was a lot better.
So let me say this. One, you're talking about village-owned parks versus park district-owned parks. The park district-owned parks have not changed. They're still raggedy. So that's one. 2, if you just had in the last 60 days, again, health insurance not paid, The previous director has been gone since February. We're in September. So you cannot say, is it like, you know what I'm saying? Like if you go, it's been 7 months. ComEd still not paid. Proven IT still not paid. Attorney still not paid. Healthcare bouncing, not paid. It's, I'm sorry.
Is there anybody from the
When you,
partnership here?
well,
that
you got
is being incorrect?
Mr. Bass is the next one got a hand up.
Oh, but see, I understand these, Jeff has been on your side from day one. So he's been actually, he was aware.
And Don is your cousin since day one. Bass, Mr. Bass. Wait, can we let's be let's be respectful to everybody. But Bash, you had your hand up. Wait, I'm gonna get you. Okay.
The responsibility of the community to vote in leaders who aren't. It's just like we have to vote in people not based off their last names, but based off affiliation or population. It's off. So like the election is coming up, we can just simply do that. For the people that's already commissioners, my question to you guys is why haven't people been held accountable for all of these things that's going on right now? Like you guys being elected officials.
The two of them are on you.
People account. So I'm sorry. Full responsibility for the country. And just the reality of it is, like, I can barely get somebody to answer the phone at the village. I can barely get somebody to return my phone call, return an email. I'm still waiting on somebody to return an email for something related to the Maywood Fest that's happened and gone, that has taken place and gone. And I've been promised, oh, I'm gonna send you an email, regarding something, and I still haven't received it. So I just wanna know what it would look like, the village taking responsibility of that when we could barely get somebody for something about the village.
So I guess the best way I could answer that thought process is you got my email, you got my personal phone number. If you know that somebody not responding, just text me. So I can't answer that, right? It's like you and I actually have like text me and say, I have not heard from this person, I have not heard from this department. Because if nobody says anything, then nobody can be held accountable to what nobody's saying.
Day to day. And if he doesn't answer the phone, you can go up there. If that man is, you should go up there and you ask for the village manager.
Somebody in the community department or whatever department, and these people are saying like, I'm gonna get back with you, but then they never get back with you, or I'm gonna send you an email, but they never send an email or never reply to an email. That's not acceptable. But I did want to hear from the village commissioners about
Park District Commission.
why no one is being held responsible for the things that's taking place, the things that we're in.
You got the two commissioners that's actually asking questions, so that's a go ahead. Yes.
First. So my vote only is 1/5 of the voting vote. I said in March, on March 9th, when our board president brought in 2 new commissioners, I said then in an open meeting that the Maywood Park District was under siege.
Yes, I find that.
I made no stuttering, no holdback. It is what it is. And I just have to deal with it as one vote until I have people on board who are looking at the best interest of not only the organization, but the best interest of the community. That's our job as commission. feels good for me, what looks good, what I personally desire. That's not what it's about. It's about where our kids are gonna play. It's about where our seniors are gonna get programs. It's about where those in between, the millennials, the Generation Z, where they can come in and do things that they desire to do. It's about the whole community. But again, I'm only one vote. Does that answer your question? It's a process. I'll tell you like that. It's a process.
So just behind,
It's a process.
so Commissioner Edemond,
Okay. Now, important.
I think he was just trying to answer Vernika's question. So he never asked a question. He was just trying to answer Vernika's question. No, that's what I'm saying. He's had his hand up. He just never asked a question. He was answering Vernika's question.
Expiration date on the intergovernmental agreement.
Mhm.
When is that expiration?
It's expired already. So it's supposed to be within 2 years of when it was signed, which would have been June of 2021. So it's June of 20.
Expired?
So the completion date was supposed to be 2 years after the signing of the agreement. So if you look at this,
Was supposed to turn over 3 parks 1 year, 3 parks the next year. That does not make the agreement expired, it makes it breached.
guess what? So actually, okay. So at the end of the day, the agreement does say it needs to be done in 2 years. We're in 2024. The 2 years was in 2023. The only way, no, listen. So listen, the only way. Wait a minute, listen. Stop. Look at the agreement. The agreement says if there is to be an extension, it's upon an agreeable.
Year, 3 parks, $100, 1 year make. That's what the agreement said.
And the agreement expired in 2023. The agreement. June of 2021 was when it was signed. It said 2 years, so that would have been June of 2023. So listen. The only way in the agreement. Bass, I don't want to argue with you. The only way the agreement would have been extended is by a mutually agreed upon extension. There was never even a request from the Maywood Park District to extend the agreement. In the agreement, it says only way that it extends is if there is a mutually agreed upon request. There has never been a request in over a year past the expiration date from the Maywood Park District for an extension.
He's not saying that. He's just saying that village never even went or complied with any parts of the agreement whatsoever.
Well, the park district also never complied with it, which is why we just installed the parks since we took back management. Because within that 2 year period, the parks should have been installed. Within that 2 year period, the parks should have been renovated. It was paid for by the village of Maywood. The park district filled out 5 pieces of paper. But the invoice, the W-9, and the check came from the village of Maywood. Everything. All of it. All of it.
Okay, what?
It should have and would have been, but let's be clear, Bass, when we say this. Was it the village of Maywood's job to install it at that time? No. It was the Maywood Park District's job to install it. They didn't do it.
I know all.
Because you had a management agreement. That's exactly what the management agreement was.
You're funny.
Yes, sir.
So a question on accountability.
It's just interesting, but at the end of the day, is it the voters who get to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on the November 5th election.
If we vote no on question 2, what happens to that $700,000?
It keeps going to what they're doing right now.
Well, if we vote yes, then we dissolve the park districts. But we vote no on the levy for the rebate. What happens to that $700,000?
Well, so to be clear, this is more of a question. It's not a binding question. So what would happen? What would have to happen at this time if this vote becomes a yes? So say question yes of question 1, then there actually has to be a binding referendum that would then go into the April 2025 election, and that has to be at least 66% of the vote.
So that keep one to 66% of the vote based on.
1/3. It says okay, so it's 1/3 of the actual election. So whoever turns up to vote. If 5 people show up, if 1 people show up, that percentage changes. So it's 66% of people who actually showed up to vote. Ms. Van Dyke.
And I was gonna mention, just to get back on what she said, ultimately, as far as, cause I read up on it, I found the actual statute that speaks about the dissolution of the tribal districts and the steps that would have to be taken. So I'm gonna be real brief. Like I said, it's being done right now. The reason why that non-binding question is being put on the November ballot is to get the approval of the people to move towards putting a binding referendum on the April ballot. Come on, let's put this out there. Ultimately, it is the people who have governance over the park district. If we as a community decide that we don't want the park district to exist, it is our vote that is required in order to have it. So let's say if in April, they give the votes that they want to put the dissolution of the park. Then at that point in time, there's gonna be involvement of the court system and a strategic plan to basically dissolve the park. They're gonna have a certain time period where they're gonna have to wrap shop with all their business.
2 years.
Thing that I realized. The actual assets, the money, the property upon the dissolution doesn't automatically go to the village. It goes to the school district, okay? In the school district, that particular revenue and those properties are gonna be temporarily held.
Well,
So for example.
It depends.
And create your own park district, because you would have to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a year to go ahead. Take up your own park district, and then if that goes through by the necessary steps, then the things that are held in the school district can then be transferred over to the village, which means that the village would have to create their own park district. But at the end of the day, none of this can happen unless we as a community say, we don't want a conflict of interest. We don't want our village of Maywood also owning our park district, because when everything is said and done, if the village currently does not have the means to sustain everything that it's currently doing now, it will be financially responsible to bring that, the nine up to compliance, to take on the financial responsibilities of doing all the things that they say that the village or the park district can't do. And that's for the people to say whether or not, based on what they're doing now with everything as a village, they're currently able to take on the additional financial responsibility. Last thing I'm gonna say, then I'll leave the floor. The contract ultimately is not expiring. I agree with him. As somebody who deals with reading contracts and understand breach of contract, the village per se had 11 parks. As part of what the people said they wanted them to be turned over, the village was obligated to turn over all.
You talking about 2006? You talking about 2006?
Huh?
You talking about from 2006? Are you referring to the 2021 referendum or the 2006 referendum that took place?
Okay, well.
So you're talking about the IGA or are you talking about the referendum?
6 months worth of work.
It had 2 years to be done. That had 2 years to be done. It wasn't done. That had 2 years to be done.
And me all turning.
So to answer that real simple, our paper The legal paperwork that needed to get done for that to take place is done. And what we didn't close because it had to be an agreeable date of closure. There was no agreeable date of closure. We have not. No. Yes, sir.
Yeah. This past tax bill went up $3,600, more than I expected. And you're telling me in the past 3 years, one of the taxing bodies that is taking my money has accomplished nothing. That's a taxing body that does not need to exist. It's padding somebody's pockets and it's taking it out of my pocket. Chase did, and then my money for these 3 years.
You
And
said
done what with it? Giving it back to me. I'll go cut grass in the parks.
If you're hearing one side of the story though.
Okay, what has the park district
But
done? And then their employees paid, what have they, parks, have they painted any parks?
Partners to be.
See the parks, I live here.
Are you looking at Maywood Parks where you?
I don't know.
Exactly, that's the.
so I think that's the point of the whole.
A city doesn't crunch. The state steps in,
This and I don't disagree with that.
a board. The city needs to step in and say, you can't, we're gonna take it back.
Well, I think that's the difference, right? If a city doesn't do what they need to do, the state will step in. There is no ordinance body, governing body that will come in and take over. Like, say, if a school district was low performing, or say if a village was low performing, there is no structure in place aside from a residential vote to change a park district. So, in having the conversations with the Illinois Association of Park and Recreation and having the conversations with the Illinois Association of Park and Recreation, they are not a governing body that steps in unless the governing body of the park district asks them to. So, you're stuck. That's the question. Like, I mean, and really, it's literally just a question, right? There's multiple steps that have to go into place after that, but it is a question.
So we're looking,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my question was, I agree with Bernie, was the lady that left.
Vernica.
Bernie, she said that the Maywood Village is already overwhelmed with a lot of tasks that they have to do. And you're saying that this would then not go to the current, Maywood, right? It would go to a new Parks and Rec or a new team.
So a different department would be created.
What's the now, it would need more,
The department would be created.
okay, not taking away from, existing bodies to make up a body.
Well,
You like.
so if you think about it this way, the village of Maywood already has like a finance department, right? So there is already that support. They already have an HR department. So the support is already there. It would probably add some public works type people from a green space perspective. It would add a director of Parks and Recreation, right? So that would take place.
Doesn't like someone's.
Yes.
That body.
Yes, it would become its own separate department, and the village of Maywood would not be the only community that has its own parks and recreation department within the municipality. That's not a not norm thing.
increase the budget.
So I would say the way that I think about it is right. So say right now, when you think about it this way, when the park and recreation department got the management agreement, to manage the 7 parks, the pool, and the other 2 facilities. The executive director's salary was increased from 60,000 to 90,000. Today, they manage none of that, yet the new executive director is 110,000. So the reality would be there would be a better way to be more fiscally responsible, in my opinion, thought process, because
Increase.
no, because when you think about it from this perspective, well, think about it. Right now, we're paying for an not necessarily. Why would they? No, the water department is underfinanced, but it's a whole. They own a whole other side of the building, right? So right, you know what I'm saying. So realistically, we would not need to hire a new HR person. We would not need to hire a new finance person. There would need to be a director or a manager of park and recreation put in place, but not at 110,000. There would be public works position would right now, what do they have? 2 or 3 at the park district? Realistically, we don't need 2 or 3 more people because we already have those positions in place to do that work. We already have people who handle our green space and our facilities. So, from a financial standpoint, if you want to go from a salary thought process, it would actually save money.
Uh,
It took me 3 months to get a little sign down.
Man, I think it would have been, helpful for us to, we had one meeting with the park district board, and their past executive director. Don't, a better idea in the spirit of community, and unity that we bring, the park district folks to the table as well as bring our board to the table.
They were invited to meet us.
To draw this, I'm talking about scheme to work. On our end, well, some of us have been asking for that we have a collective conversation to get an up on the status of what is happening currently. Because some of that information sounds like it's old information that you're presenting, this evening.
Let's see.
Sure what conditions are over there at the picture. I don't have any anything more, any, like, give me any intel, to give me the information that you're presenting. So what I'm saying is, don't you think it would have been a better idea for our, because you're the only one that has this information, and quite frankly, the last conversations we had, everything was golden, everything was good, everything was in good hands when the net hall was over there. And now
That's not true. Trustee, let me be real clear. When I brought this back in October and they only had $310 in their bank account and bounced checks and healthcare not paid for, don't do that. I did not say that everything was good in golden sunshine.
idea, and we're gonna talk about community to have a collective
Trustee,
with the government.
they've been asked to have a collective meeting. No, be clear.
Conversation against you
They have been asked to have a meeting.
when information that you have to provide me to our board.
Mislead about what?
What happened?
Commissioner Eden. Commissioner Eden's right there.
To answer my husband's question, we have been invited to participate collectively through the president, and she has not allowed it to happen. There are 2 commissioners right here that can attest to that. Number 2, if you go back, you said something about October 2023. In January 2024, to speak to your point, am I his boy? No, my father was an orphan in that building. My grandfather's name is on the street that runs adjacent to the building. My mother, that was her first job. My grandmother ran the popcorn stand there. I am committed to that partnership because I grew up there. I have a family of ties and allegiance to it. And at the end of the day, let's be clear, it wasn't the mayor that came and sought me out to join the board. It was President Dawn Williams that came to his office in January of 2024 seeking his assistance. If the reason this information, trustee, is because President Donald Williams walked in with a book and volume of all the financials and business of the district because she was in battle and thought she was going to lose control of the board and asked for the mayor's assistance. And in asking for that assistance, she specifically asked myself and Commissioner Brown, to apply to be members of the board. He didn't ask me to do that, she did. I didn't say you did. But at the end of the day, the mayor specifically acquiesced to every request that President Williams asked in order to assist her in her ballot position while she was dealing with executive director of accounts. He was, for some reasons, should. It was under executive director Hall's direction that 5 years of annual financial reports were not done. They were not done. So to speak to the young lady who was sitting here, she answered a question about accountability, but she votes. And the times that we have voted, we have been turned down. And here's the other thing. We don't control the agenda. It's control the agenda. So if she needs to put something on a special board meeting, which we've had more special board meetings than we've had any other time of meeting. What she want to do?
You got to admit that the last few times that I had to go to a meeting where you were in attendance, there was one mention of the children. There was not one mention of the cities. There was bitch, the whole little thing was about the things that were on the agenda.
Wait, let's guys, let's do this. Guys. So let's bring this back. So just from a basic thought process, when you say the make it make sense factor, do you think it makes sense that in 3 years there is not $5 of cash installed and deposited in 9 different bank accounts? No, it's just real simple. Do you think it makes sense that a governing body has bounced checks? Do you think it makes sense that in 2023 and in 2024, healthcare insurance was ended? Do you think that makes sense? Do you think it makes sense for another governing body to get a phone call and say, did you know that this governing body had a whole different account? Do you think that makes sense? So it's like it's not a fight. It's not an attack. It's not it doesn't make sense.
Into this building, and ever since I've ever heard these conversations about Park District versus Maywood, Park District versus Maywood.
What year did that start?
Agenda. My whole thing has always been, got to come together to make this thing.
We've
Fighting each other.
And we've tried. That's how we got to an IGA. That's how we got to a management agreement. But when you literally have a partner that hasn't filed an audit in 5 years, do you keep that bit? Are you still going to stay business partners? Keep that business?
Yeah.
When you have, but you do know that's actually factual. That's the part. That's the part that gets me. Specifically, yes, you do now. No, but you know specifically. You specifically know.
To keep other stuff out.
But there has not been 5 years of an audit.
Man.
You specifically know that there is no budget on file. You specifically know how many law firms have fired the Park District. You specifically know how many auditors have left. You specifically know bills that have not been paid. You specifically know that checks have bounced. You specifically know payroll has bounced. You specifically know that healthcare insurance has not been paid. You specifically know these things. Yes, sir.
Oh, smile. That's I will be the first to say yes. But if my wife is sick, kill her. You want to try and heal her. And that's what the Park District needs right now. It needs people in those seats who are willing to fight for this community. Now, as far as that $200,000 loan you're talking about, that was only $175,000.
Because the other 25 got stolen.
No, it was only $175,000.
Okay.
That's all it was. Probably so.
I don't have a question, like I said, no one needs to Commissioner Bass. So, Commissioner Bass, how long did you just say, everybody knows how I work. For you to sit and say that we have to be responsible. The Park District has had loyal, vibrant, educated, committed employees to that district.
That did nothing.
That's,
Did we say anything about
I say, been committed, and who has stayed. And employees can only do so much under the directive.
And that is true.
So they can only do so much. They're not creating policy, ordinance. They have to follow the proper procedure that is given to them by the head person in charge.
That's true.
And there has been employees there that have done over their job requirement and expectation that the ball has been dropped on. We all know who some of them are, especially when you say commitment, as your husband just made the example of he would not let his wife die. There are employees there who show up and show out for countless hours and pay for things out of their pockets that did not receive insurance, that was not paid, and when became sick, did not have coverage, not knowing, laying in a hospital bed and had to be removed because of no coverage. And then when the information was sent to every class commissioner, minus your husband badge, not one responded. Right, not one, not even to say, hey, now is there anything? And those employees deserve that.
They do.
And that's why you voted
They
in
do.
April to make it
To make
better.
it better. But you can't have people working both sides. You gotta like.
Is that information current or old?
Right. And then the person also was
It's
informed
current.
to
It's current.
It's been paid, it's current.
Right.
Well,
People are
I'm
not.
not even gonna address that here because
Was insurance letters sent in July of 2024 and August of 2024 saying that they don't got insurance coverage? Yes or no? It's real simple.
was there one?
In July and August of 2024 were letters sent to employees saying that they don't have coverage. Not bad. I love you. But you are did it happen? Jeff, did it happen?
And that.
Thank you.
Because
You are not.
it's between two
Yeah,
countries.
okay, that's fair.
Two countries. And this third gender is about the community.
You also, you see it.
You were gonna ask a question.
Yeah, I'm confused. This seems like a legal position where you can really steal from and not be held accountable. Somebody gotta be held accountable. I'm talking about an audit in 5 years. Can't be legal.
Yeah,
They gave repays to paid here.
I know.
What you said, that's Dalton is going on up there. Be criminal, man. That has to be criminal.
Well,
It's impossible for you to say this. And thank God you have to give up the other 6 parts. You know what I'm saying? Or to be worse than that, whatever happened with the agreement, but it's gotta be criminal.
well,
It's impossible when you say.
the reality is-
The repass of the repass, and true, when they got the dance. I'll put it on the side, I've been in the
I mean, the previous director was put on administrative leave pending an investigation, right? The investigation never started. The village of Maywood, as taxpayers, we paid for that woman to sit home for 6 months and do nothing without a single investigation even starting. Wait, okay. The investigation went into the 9 bank accounts with no cash deposits. The investigation went into the audit. Come on. A piece.
Case did not start. The investigations.
She was not fired for 6 months. Her contract expired. You did not fire her for 6 months. It don't take 6 months to do an investigation.
Attorneys who found.
Which one that quit?
They don't got them.
Okay.
There was only one that investigated Lynette Hall. They don't got along.
For what, a week?
No.
Delgado wasn't even there that long.
Because Delgado's.
IPR, yep, APRA.
That,
But my question is, best when they started the investigation and had to recuse themselves from that investigation, why wasn't another investigation launched?
it wasn't by Delgado, and let's be clear what investigation means. Because investigation is not a catch-all, right? So whether an investigation into money being fraudulently spent or not deposited, that was not the basis of the investigation. So the initial investigation, which I was opposed to, was not about those very things. It was about other things that Dawn Williams specifically asked them to look at, which ultimately, all the things that she claimed, Delgado came back and said, there's no basis for any of these things that Dawn claimed. She never asked them to investigate the fund issue. She never asked about cash. She never asked about these specific things. That secondary investigation was supposed to begin because Delgado by us and can no longer represent us directly. Secondary law firm was supposed to, we were supposed to let them know whether or not there was insurance to cover the cost of that investigation. Insurance to cover the cost of that investigation. That never get investigation, which was more narrowly focused specifically on things that were transpiring that either would have led to criminal investigation or some type of restitution, but not necessarily the dismissal of Lynette Hall because her contract was simply expiring. No money was ever transferred to that law firm in order for them to conduct that investigation. President Don Williams never even brought it up again.
So again, this is literally just a conversation in regards to these are questions that are on the November ballot for you to vote it up or vote it down. The conversation that happens when it says, let's work together. We've been trying to do that, right? But when you, again, and I'm not going to let my wife die neither. But if my wife have an affair and cheating on me in my face, I'm going to deal with that a different way. When you have a other partner that literally funds misappropriation, program misappropriation. I mean, you literally had a grant and we're still charging seniors to run a senior program. You literally had a grant and we're still charging families $500 for a summer program. How is it that the village of Maywood had kids in the building right across the street that's middle school and high school for free, but they had to pay $500 at the park district, even though the park district had a grant? You had $250,000 to run that summer program.
Let me ask you a question. What's your annual tax budget?
It's not about no. To be clear, the summer program that was specifically written for summer it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. You wrote a grant to run summer programming, yet you still charge families. Where's the $250,000 at Bass? Where is it? 2 years ago. It was a 2-year grant. You've been there since it existed. You've been there since it existed. You've been there since it existed. That's all I'm saying. At the end of the day, my point is, you have been made aware by me personally that there was a $250,000 grant.
There's a 250.
I told you where it was from.
The other people tell me, oh, there's no grant. So what?
It's ICEJA. It's $250,000. You all had it. Don't know where it went, but you most certainly had it. You can call the executive director is Del Reese Adams, who's actually a Maywood resident from the Illinois Justice Information Authority. You had the grant. Where's the money? This is the thing that but it's not before you. It was during your time as well, though, is my issue, right? It was still during the time that you came on. It's not about you specifically, right? It's about At a certain point, you all are paying a man $110,000. He has not renovated a park. He has no strategic plan for a park renovation. He has no budget approved. He's not even presented a budget. He has no actual programming aside from senior programming that involves anything but unlocking a door for $110,000 a year.
Question is, did I vote him in? No, I did not.
You still vote for him to get paid every meeting.
No, we don't vote on that.
You don't vote on payroll.
We don't vote. Seen a bunch of houses.
But do y'all hear that? Like,
Now,
I just wanted it to be said. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you, and I understood. I just wanted it to be put on the record, not by me.
but we need to vote and for commissioners that are gonna do the job. That's it.
They know they can steal for free. Everybody can do something.
Yes, ma'am.
Thing is, there's no, that's one of our first, second meeting, but the first, he comes to about this, and I'm glad I came. It's so,
Yeah.
it really is, and our taxes have went up. I mean, I've seen some of the good things happen, but just like he just told you that, it's the grant. You guys got a grant, she said you weren't there, but now, but what I'm saying, you're just saying that, he told you that. That happened, he wasn't there, but when you came on board, and you heard about it, go, and everything, found out about it, that, because then.
Here's what's happening, right? We are trying to investigate those things, but when, for example, we have a Wintrust Bank and a Republic Bank, and by law, based on an ordinance that was, a resolution that was created by the Park District, and the Park District then went to a bank and said, yes, let this person be assigned on the account. And then that bank then gives him a signature document for him to sign on that account. And all of those things are done. So by law now, he's supposed to be able to access those records for both bank accounts. Why is it that he can't access a bank account right now? It's not that he's trying to do it, it's not that he's trying. He came in March, he came shortly before me. And when you got certain people talking about, I came on because of certain, I came on to see that this was being done the right way. So for example, we run meetings and we don't run meetings properly. We don't even have meetings that have agendas that are even properly structured according to our own governing document. And then when I say something about that being right, now all of a sudden I'm being ostracized and I'm this and I'm that. Oh no, we have a way to run things. And guess what? There's a leader to how those things are supposed to be run. And when that person doesn't do things, we object. For example, you present an agenda at a general meeting and then there's an approval of agenda. I would block people of agenda. We have stopped, I literally stopped meetings because the agenda is not correct. But it's about the extent of what we can do because it's a matter of a vote. And before there's even a vote, let's be clear about something. And this is at every governmental level. You know what you get to vote on? Whatever the powers that be put in front of you. You don't vote on anything else. So when I go to a board meeting and things aren't on the agenda because it's a special meeting and she can put whatever she wants to put on there, and I can't see side of those things, there is I have more special meetings than regular meetings that get anything done. And at the end of the day, we can't get anything done because we can't bring up anything other than what's on her agenda. Her agenda is not about people on the end of the day, big finish right now. It's 5 people. It's on the agenda.
Yeah.
I'm so. But learn, you know how much different and worse thing you do. This is a fact. You're not gonna see. Yes, what? There's $1 million a month. Saying how board gets 7,000, 700,000 for the entire year operates. Very clear. But what I'm also this. When your leadership does things that they're not supposed to be doing, they're setting a tone for the culture of the rest of the organization, right? But then when you get somebody that comes in and doesn't want that to happen and tries to stop it, they're ostracized. They're told they don't live in Maywood, which I've lived in Maywood pretty much all my life except my military service. I've been told I'm not a registered voter in the district that that's here, which is absolutely false, right? I'm accused of threatening people and a battery and assault and police reports are filed and they're absolutely false. Those are the things I that have happen. reported to the AG as the illegal commissioner, but the AG says I'm legal. But the park district itself was picketed stating I'm illegal. So I had the attorney, you're right, it should be about transparency, but here's the thing, we don't control that in Jimmy. Absolutely, I really wish there was so much more of this, the things that happen in the executive that we could actually tell y'all for y'all, here's the reality. Y'all want transparency, show up at the meetings and make those questions at the public hearing portion of it to say, where is my money? Where's our money?
Show me the money. Put me on a bank account. Let me see the my question. I want to take a trip to.
Yes, ma'am.
You won't be on the road.
Yes, ma'am. Appointed. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you something, your,
Absolutely.
okay. Therefore, you are mandatory to support that board. If you have any grievance, then you take it to who's in charge.
And then the grievance is with the person that's in charge, what do you do?
Discuss with them and to resolve something, not have it broad.
But when they file police, but when that person files a police report against you, that's false.
Come on, and not care about.
Say, what do you do when the person in charge is corrupt?
Person,
Corrupt.
yeah, like at the end of the day, the person that I have the issue
The
with,
person that they have court, that's in charge, when the own government.
That,
So what's something?
strong, disgusting, this and that and the other.
Mr. Mayor, they throwing around that.
Okay,
Man.
so I do hear it,
Corrupt.
but let's
No.
let's be clear. Here's my truth, and you know my truth because I done told you my truth. You telling me I personally have 3 years of bank statements from the bank district, not $5 of cash has been deposited. Nobody's paid for a drink. Nobody's paid for a repass.
drinks that President Dawn with.
That the president is the bartender for. I know that's your cousin. I'm sorry. You gotta make it make sense. You gotta make it make sense. No. You see why you smell? Because you can't say no. You got people, kids doing basketball, kids doing baseball, kids doing football, people coming to arts and crafts. No cash. In 3 years? Not $1. Yeah, you do an audit from 2019 where you report no cash revenue. Zero cash taken in 12 months. Come on now.
My comments here today are not because of any personal relationships. My comments today have been my same comments that I've been talking about.
You ain't changed. You ain't changed.
And change, I don't change.
But your cousin been on the board for 10 years.
Then work together. Get it done, like Bass said.
But can you?
If she's dying, I ain't gonna kick her to the curb. Okay, I'm gonna help her. And sometimes you have to, of course.
She not dying, she cheating. At a certain point, you got to say, it's not as if she dying or not. She cheating. How many years you going to stay cheated on? If the cheating don't stop?
I just find it funny that the same, like, President Williams wanted help and brought in Commissioner Bass, and then tried to have him removed when he was being our way. She brought myself in, she brought in Commissioner Brownlee, thought that we was looking patsies and vote any old way, but we actually have a brain and we thought about stuff, and we criticized and we analyzed, and now at the end of the day, she wants to get rid of us too. So there's a fact, right? The fact is, the same person who's in charge of leading the organization is not leading it. And then the people that want to actually affect change are ostracized.
We're reporting to the police with false police reports. We're told stuff like, he threatened somebody when the entire conversation was recorded and there was no threatening. Information is withheld from us. Documents are withheld from us. Conversations are withheld from us. Again, make it make sense that we have more special meetings where we can't bring up anything other than what she says we're gonna talk about than we do general meetings where we get zero accomplished. There's no accusations. These are all facts.
I'm saying there's 5 people on the board. You tell like you 5 guys, y'all are 5 members, y'all put together off and just talk about and get things together.
No, oh yes, 2 can be in the room at one time. If another commissioner comes in, we have to wait.
So Open Meetings Act violation.
Well, I don't know anything about all this.
All right.
Don't, there should be a,
Only meetings that we can have. That's it.
So with that said,
Listen,
is there anybody who has not spoken, or is there anybody who has a question before we close out this meeting? So we're gonna close out this meeting. Yes, ma'am.
These are, I was involved, no.
So you're talking about the property taxes?
Yeah.
So that meeting's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh, so no, you're good. So we had the meeting with the assessor's office 2 weeks ago, and then the Board of Review's office is here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Want to make sure. Yeah, so that's 6 o'clock. So the Cook County Board of Review office will be here tomorrow at 6 o'clock. They'll be here at 6 o'clock. So that'll be the Board of Review talking about the property taxes and the way to appeal from Board of Review standpoint. The assessor's office came 2.5 weeks ago. Their process has expired. It's the 16th of September is when it was over. And then you also can still do your exemptions. So if you haven't done your exemptions, then you can go, depending on which exemption, you can go to 3 to 5 years back. But the Board of Review will be here tomorrow at 6 to talk about that. Okay. The other piece of this meeting was to talk about the difference in regards to village manager versus mayor, because there was a conversation in regards to increasing. So we'll go